I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen really quickly. Oh, I can't share my screen.
Let us give you co-host access.
Thank you.
And now you should be able to share your screen.
Perfect. Let's see. All right. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself really quickly. My name is Mirna Ramo. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a biology major, a little bit of a plot twist. I was born and raised in Syria, and my email is right there. I'll also drop it in the chat. It's just ASI VP of Finance, not of VP of Finance at CSUEB. Unfortunately, this year we don't do office hours. The whole hybrid working situation is a little bit weird, but I do like to let people know that I'm in the office every Wednesday from like morning till night. But I am mostly available 2 to 4 p.m. Before that, I usually have meetings and classes and stuff like that. So if you ever want to chat in person because it's easier, you can always find me on Wednesdays on campus for sure. And then I'm just gonna dive in. I'm gonna briefly talk about travel funding. Each year, ASI earmarks a portion of its budget for the student conference travel funding to subsidize students with academic and professional development opportunities. In order to make sure that this is a fair process of where this grant goes, that's why we developed the ASI policy on student conference travel funding. I'm going to drop a bunch of links in the chat at the end. Those are just links to where you can find the policy on our website and all that stuff. And then I'm going to do a quick glance on travel policy guidelines. So for individual travel funding request requirements, a student can be awarded a one-time, like a maximum of $500 per academic year for in-state travel. And then students can be awarded up to $1,000 per academic year for out-of-state. Now those numbers are like the categories have limitations. So for example, lodging will be funded up to $275 per night. And then the conference must be 50 miles away from campus. Now you also have the option of group funding request. And then the requirements for that would be students can be funded a maximum of $1,500. This is combined for in-state conference, and then also $1,500 for out-of-state. But no more than 4 students will be funded for the same conference throughout the academic year. Now we're going to talk about clubs and organizations funding. Same thing, we have a policy for funding. This is to ensure that clubs get their funding in order to host their events, to enrich the cultural, educational, recreational, and physical well-being of East Bay. So a quick glance at their guidelines, at the policy guidelines for clubs and orgs. The maximum amount that any club or organization can be granted for one event is $1,000. Again, multiple student clubs and organizations, 2 to 4 student organizations can collaborate together on a same event and file a funding request together. Student clubs and organizations collaborations toward the same event can request up to, so they can get up to $1,500 in total requests, but this is divided among all people that have collaborated on that event. And then, God forbid, knock on wood, we go fully virtual again. The virtual club funding will be implemented immediately, which we have ready, from last year. And all ASI funded events must comply with the viewpoint neutrality policy. I have that also linked. I can drop it in the chat if anyone would like to take a look at it. And then the maximum amount of funding per club and org each semester is $2,250. And then on the ASI policy for club funding, you will see this little, it's really clear. I really like it. I took it straight from our policy. And this just shows the categories and what the limit is for each category, as well as what virtually it would look like. So this is just to take a look at, for example, food, you can get up to 1,000 per academic year. So each category has a limit, and you can find that in the policy. Now, how do you apply for this funding? So of course, as Heather mentioned, you have to be really familiar with Basync because everything's on there. So you'd go visit our new Basync. You sign in with your NET ID, and then at the home screen, you're going to locate your organization type, and then you're going to locate the ASI link. It just looks like that, Associated Students Inc. And then you will you'll go to the forms tab, and then you'll be able to fill out it's titled Club Funding Request, Club and Orgs Funding Request. And then you must submit that application 30 calendar days before the event to be considered for funding. That is the first requirement. That's the most important requirement, which I'm going to go into in a little. But this is kind of what it looks like, just our ASI page, and that's where you'll be able to find the form. So why the 30-day calendar? The process is a little bit long. So an email is initially sent, like this is just what happens during those 30 days. An email is sent by the system that it was submitted. Sneh, who is our executive assistant, and her staff will review the submission to make sure that all requirements are met. Like for example, the 30-day requirement, and you've not gone over your allocations, you have all documents and flyers that are required. The finance committee gives it a final review, and then the finance committee forwards approved event proposals to Sneh, and then she'll prepare the spreadsheet, transfer the funds to the clubs and orgs, and then me and Eric will sign and approve. The VP of Finance or Sneh or the finance committee will email that club and org that they have been approved for that amount. And then Sneh forwards this and journal entry to account payable. Now, the 30-day might sound like it's way too long. Why do we do all this? This really has a lot of pros because sometimes the application submitted that you'll be missing something on there. So whether it's a flyer or something, and having that 30-day period will work in your benefit because the VP of Finance, me in this case, or anyone on our team will let you know what's missing, and you have enough time to resubmit it back to us so we can continue reviewing that application and go ahead and approve it. So it gives enough time to fix any issues with the application and all that stuff. And that's pretty much it. I wanted to give some time in case you guys have any questions. And if there are no questions, I did a little pop quiz to make sure that you get the most important requirements out of all this.
I have a quick question. So I understand this is to get money from ASI, but what about to get money from our own bank account for our own organization to pay for something? Because I've been waiting for quite some time. So I'm just wondering if maybe I missed a step or what's going on with that.
That's the topic of our next part of this presentation, right, Heather?
Yes. Yeah, we're coming up next.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay.
And I'm curious, how much money is provided? So I want to build a community building type of organization, right? Or a club rather. So how much money is provided just initially for like a newcomer club? Yeah.
If you mean like, so we do have a category, this is a little bit separate than these categories that we have for already active clubs. We have a category in our funding, which goes just to start a club, in order to help you start a club. I don't know the number off the top of my head, how much each person gets, but generally speaking, it would be the same. For example, each semester, your max is $2,250 for each club. So I don't know I hope that answers it.
I think it does. Thank you. Yeah.
So it's referred to as seed funding.
Yes, seed funding.
Your club. And if you go on the ASI page, there is a little section that describes the criteria that's needed in order to apply for seed funding, but it's typically up to $300.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Marina? This is a very unique opportunity to have the ASI VP of Finance here to answer your questions. So take advantage before she goes.
I have a question. So once it's approved, how do we move into the purchasing part? Like getting the money, and then do we buy it, or will the finance community do all that for us?
So it is a collaboration between ASI and Student Life. So, they approve the funds, but just like with any bank account, the funds actually have to get moved from ASI to your club account. So it's not that as soon as you get the email, okay, let's start spending money. We have to make sure that the money is in the account, just like what you would with your own personal account, right? So the money has to post, if you will. And so that's why ASI keeps us in the loop as far as who's been approved and who we can expect to see funding for. And then we check back to your account to make sure that it's actually in there. And then we can start the spending, the purchasing. And we're going to be covering that a little bit more next as well.
Yes, I also wanted to touch up really quickly on the finance committee. As of right now, we don't have that yet. We're in the process of interviewing people for that committee. But once that is all set up, the finance committee meets probably every other week or however the committee decides. But as of right now, it's just me. So, it goes through SNE, and then SNE and her team process their part, and then it goes to me, and then I review the applications once more. And then if it meets all the requirements, I approve, and then it gets sent to, the rest gets sent to Student Life and goes from there.
And part of the reason too why they need so much time in advance to get your request is that, the committee doesn't meet weekly. And so they've typically in the past have met like every other week, I believe, right? So essentially twice a month. And so if your club is getting your forms turned in late, it doesn't mean that it's getting looked at the next day. So we really want you to be mindful of that so then you don't miss opportunities for funding.
I'm sorry, quick question. How long does it typically take? I just came, so if you already covered that, I apologize, but how long does it take for the funding to get approved? The funding request to get approved?
As of right now, because there is no committee and it is just me, so I don't have to have meetings to go over those applications, it takes me about no more than 2 weeks, but you do have to submit it 30 days before that event, if that makes sense. So if that, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's all done on a first come, first serve basis, right? So you kind of get in the queue. So if 3 other clubs have turned in their request before you, theirs are going to get reviewed before yours.
Definitely. Makes sense. Thank you.
I see 2 hands up, Marguerite and Omar.
Thank you, Heather. I just want to note for the students in the room and for the benefit of our ASI VP of Finance, just a quick reminder and note about ASI funds versus the club funds that may or may not already be available in your student club account. Some of you have a balance, some of you may not if you're a new organization. Uh-oh. I don't know what happened. Am I still here? Oh, I'm still here. Sorry about that. My computer died for a second. But these funds are coming from associated students, which means they are all students' funds. This is from a pool of money from all students. And so any requests for funding from ASI for events and programs for your student clubs or organizations need to be open to all students. And there are some limitations and requirements around acknowledging that ASI funding helped with your event or program. And so that's why there's a little bit more of a lead time. It needs to be evaluated and make sure that it's hitting the target on all the policies related to utilizing ASI funding, because those funds are for all students. And again, we'll get into how do you access your club funds out of your student club account later on in this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Marguerite. And Myrna, would you mind providing one more time where you are located on Wednesdays? You said a certain time, like 2 to 4 or something as well?
Yes, correct. I'm usually available 2 to 4 on Wednesdays, and I will be in the ASI office, which is located on the 2nd floor above Taco Bell in the Old Student Union.
Thank you.
I'm also happy to always schedule Zoom meetings. If you email me, I provided my email in the chat. I'm more than happy to always meet. I always find talking for a few minutes is so much easier than emailing back and forth. So I try to be available. We can set up Zoom meetings or in-person meetings, whatever you prefer.
Thank you.
Mirna, are student leaders able to attend when the committee does start? Are they able to attend the ASI finance committee meetings? Are those open to student leaders?
They are not. I believe they're not, but I do want to double check on that because I could be wrong. But as of right now, I'm going to say they're not, but I'll double check and keep everyone updated.
Thank you.
So with that, if we don't have any more questions for Mirna, I want to thank you so much for being here and taking the time to sit with us and really help to educate our newest club leaders. So show some reactions for Mirna. Let's give her our thanks for participating with us this morning. So important to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And with that, I'm going to share my screen as we transition to the rest of our presentation for student organization finances. And so Ms. Renee, our office manager, and I will be talking with you a bit about how this all works, because some of the questions that you were asking are directly related to what we're about to go over here. So student organizations and finances overview we'll get into first, and then the types of payments and purchases that can be made, club funding opportunities. Mirna already covered ASI funding, so we're going to jump over that. And then the do's and don'ts, what you should and should not be doing related to club finance, tips, suggestions, and reminders. So first, just to give you the kind of high level overview. So each student club or organization is assigned an on-campus account. And each account is uniquely named, and it starts with AS and then ending with 3 digits. So AS 123, AS 225. And if we have treasurers here in this Zoom, you all need to know your AS number. When I send out your club renewal letter, so once you have finished the process, that's why we talked about that first. Once you finish the process, you get your official letter of recognition from Student Life. And on that letter, it has your club's AS number. So some of you may be saying, oh, we never got the letter. We don't have the number. It's coming. As long as your club has finished the process, it's coming. And some of you may have already received your letter. And so that account should be used for all business related to your club. And any money that's collected by your club should be deposited as soon as possible into your AS account. To make a deposit, you would go to the cashier's desk over in the SA building. There's a club deposit slip that you can print out online and that we have available here in the office if you happen to be on campus and want to stop by. Money should not be kept outside of this account, meaning no club funds should be kept in your own personal account. Your Venmo accounts, any other third-party apps, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, I'm sure maybe I'm missing one. They should not be held in those type of accounts. This ensures full transparency and assures that your club and org funds are being used in a manner that's compliant with CSU policies. And you can access your club's balance and any account information by contacting me, your student life advisor, or even Ms. Renee. She would be able to provide you with that information. So we do offer cash advances and reimbursements. So as an officer, you have the ability to access money in your club's account. Club members are not permitted to access club accounts. So again, that is a right, a privilege that comes with being an official club officer for your organization. If you need to purchase food or supplies or decorations, anything that's under $500, you can either do a cash advance or a cash reimbursement. So someone that was asking the question before, well, can we just purchase things, like once we know that we have our money? Yes, you can, but first you need to check in with your advisor, me, to just make sure that there are funds in there before you start spending funds. So to clarify, if you don't want to put your own money out up front to then get reimbursed later, you don't have to. You could go to the cashier's desk and do a cash reimbursement, a cash advance for the account. And so a cash advance is where you receive the money in advance to make the purchase. And then reimbursement is when you make the purchase with your own personal money and then later get that money back. You cannot use that process to pay for guest speakers, services like a DJ or, a photographer, rentals, things like that, or any transaction that's over $500, regardless of the type of transaction. We have different processes for that, which Ms. Renee will get into in just a minute. Again, contact your student life advisor, me, to get approval before any money is spent. We definitely hate for students to put out their own personal funds only to find out there's no money to reimburse you with. So really the responsibility is on you to make sure that you get the approvals needed before you start spending anything. We do have a club and org funding and reimbursement request form online that we created during the pandemic. We had to go digital. We used to just do everything on paper, but we've gotten fancy now. And so there is this form here. It is located on the Student Life website in the officer toolbox. Because that form requires signatures, so your own, but then also 2 signatures from Student Life before it moves on to the cashier's staff. And then we have here the cashier's office hours. They're back to being pretty much, full hours, 8:30 to 5, and then on Fridays from 10 to 3. Before we move forward, because we're going to be covering a lot, are there any questions that have popped up? Maybe I should look in the chat real quick.
What about signing petitions? Like
signing what?
Signing petitions, because I actually planning on creating some petitions.
Well, what do you mean by petition?
Like just creating petitions that can advocate for different needs around the world, like whether it be for autism acceptance or whether it be for even historic preservation.
So that's a different subject outside of club finance that we're talking about here. So what you're saying isn't really related to this, and students definitely are able to start petitions, and that's within your right as a student here. And so that's definitely something we can talk to you about after. Okay. Let's see. So cash advance and reimbursement steps.
Oh, there's a hand raised, Alexandria.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you, Alexandria. Go ahead.
That's okay, Heather. I just wanted to make sure this is the process. I would find that online form, and then I would fill that out to reimburse, let's say for there's a board on campus that our group decorated for our club, and they purchased some items to decorate that. So in order to reimburse those students, this is the process I would take in order to help reimburse them.
Correct.
Okay, but not pay for guest speakers that we have coming up. You said that will be mentioned soon.
Right. So things like that, where if someone is actually providing you with a service like guest speaking, like a DJ, like a photographer, right? That's something that our office has to go through accounting. And I'm going to have Renee touch on that, like I said, in just a minute, and she can give you the more detailed description of that. As far as the reimbursement process, in order to be reimbursed, you do have to have the original receipts that get supplied to the cashier's office. It can't be a photocopy. It can't be like just the credit card portion that you sign. It has to be the itemized receipt showing, line by line, all the things that were purchased. It also should be turned in. If you're doing a cash advance, those things need to be turned back in to the cashier's office within 2 business days of the event. And so somebody would need to stop by the cashiers. So the way it works is you go bring in that cash advance form. They give you, say you're asking for $100, right? They give you the $100. You go ahead and make your purchases. Whatever money that you didn't spend that's left over has to be returned back to the cashier's office along with those original receipts. And that's how they do the accounting to make sure that, that all that you're saying was spent was really spent. And then they hold on to that and, put those funds back in your club account. You had another question?
I'm just wondering, I should gather the original receipts from the other members in my club and bring them to campus to the cashier's office along with this form already filled out online.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for the cash advance, yes,
this is for a reimbursement rather, because they already,
okay. Yeah. So we do have that form online. And like I said, that kind of goes through electronically. But the part that you're physically bringing back to campus is the receipts.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. And then we also need copies of those receipts. So the cashier's office gets the originals, but Student Life needs copies. So generally in the past, pre-COVID, students would come by our office first. We'd make photocopies of your receipts and then send you on your way with the originals over to the cashiers to finish, the last step. Okay. Renee, did you want to add anything about cash advances or reimbursements?
No, that's pretty much. What I would say though, if you have officers within your club, and you're not certain as to what they're purchasing, when in doubt, always ask. If they're out purchasing something that you may not have approved of, shoot Heather an email. Always, double check before purchasing anything, because not all and everything is approved to actually purchase. I think you covered the gift card, or we may moving forward. But yeah, when in doubt, always ask.
Always ask. So this slide is a little busy, so I apologize, but these are the types of payments that a club can have interaction wise. So we just covered cash advances, right? For an event or a program, something like that, up to $500. So cashiers won't give you more than $500 cash as an advance, because really anything over that, our office needs to handle the purchasing of, right? So that kind of goes out of your hands and into ours. And your club must have the funds available in your account to cover the cash advance. And then, as I mentioned, the receipts will be turned in. This person here is really the cashier's office, okay? And then Student Life being provided with copies of the receipts. The cash reimbursement for club events, programs, purchases, again, up to $500, because anything over $500 that needs to be reimbursed has to be done in the form of a check request that Ms. Renee would have to be initiating for the club through accounting. And again, funds have to actually be in the club's account for us to reimburse you. So again, so important, and to have the itemized receipts as well. We have had clubs in the past where people have lost receipts, and unfortunately, we can't refund you, something that we have no, physical written record of. Renee, can you cover these next few, starting with?
Yeah, even if I could just piggyback a little bit about just checking your balances before even making any purchase. It's always wise to, like, even with your own personal debit cards, don't go to the bank if you know you only have $100 in there and you're trying to pull out 200. Always know your balance, and you can always ask. Remember, when in doubt, always ask. And so, I'm sorry, where are we? Club credit card.
We are on the short-term limited scope.
Okay, so the short-term limited scope is going to be for an individual who doesn't have a business VDR in the system. I'm sorry, that was wrong. A business that doesn't have a business name. So individual is Renee Tucker versus a business name like Renee's restaurant. So it has to be an individual, and those vendors are processed with a short-term limited scope, similar to like a DJ who provides service with just his name. So,
or like a guest speaker that you're wanting to pay.
But also even a guest speaker can have a business name. So it just depends. When in doubt, ask. And so the process of processing those payments depends on the vendor's name. So club credit card purchases are all processed through me. I like to say, send me your basket, and I can process the payment and see what's in your basket, what's approved to be paid. Most likely, most everything can be approved to purchase, but I do manage all of your purchases through the club P card, and that is a credit card that you all use with the balances that are in your AS accounts, and I can purchase all your merchandise with the P card.
I have a comment. I just want to clarify for student leaders in the room that a student club and organization is a part of student life and leadership programs. So when you're out there making purchases and doing business, you're operating as our department. That's why Renee has a club and organization credit card, so you can make club purchases. But all of these purchases are via our department. The reason why you're able to get petty cash is because we've advocated for this over the years. And over the years as student leaders, you haven't let us down. Even staff and faculty don't have access to petty cash. So we understand that accessing funds is essential to you as a student club or organization being successful in campus life. And so we have all of these measures in place because these are the same measures that our department follows when we're making purchases, right? And so I just want to be clear on why you all have to go through this process, but also acknowledge that even we as staff don't have access to petty cash. And so thank you for continuing to return the receipts and the change within the prescribed amount of time, because no one wants a registration hold put on their student account. And that is the consequence of not following the rules. And I can say to date that not one student leader has ever had a hold placed on their student account for failing to return funds or original receipt. Thank you.
Thank you.
To continue, the major purchases are processed through a PO system, which I will require requisition to our procurement department for any purchases that could be possibly large or big bulk, or again, a vendor that has a business name. And so like rentals, merchandise on a large level, companies with an item that has a university logo on it does have to come to Heather and myself so we can get approvals. So there's a licensing with CSU. So anything with logos on it, our images have to go through approval. And those processes are done through purchase orders. Let's see. Travel claim forms are required if you're traveling and would like to be reimbursed by the university for your club and organization accounts. And make sure to work with your student life advisor. Always start with student life. And these need to be completed within 30 days for local travel. Okay, so deposits can be made into your club account. You can access those club deposit forms on Basync or in our office, and you just take your deposits over to the cashier's office. Let's see. Electronic payment transactions. Heather, you want to cover that area with the cash?
Yeah, I'll talk about that. So something that we started using about a year and a half ago was CashNet to allow clubs to be able to collect fees, membership dues, and sell merchandise online. And so if you're wanting to, so let me back up. So the way that works is that when a club is wanting to collect dues, fees, like I said, or sell something, even like raffle tickets, right? You guys are wanting to do a fundraiser, you would contact me, let me know what it is that you're wanting to sell, the purchase amount, the dates that you're wanting to sell it. And then someone in student financial services, a staff member, helps us create a page for your club. And so I'm actually going to take a second and try to pull that up because I do want to show you. Hold on one second. I want to show you what it looks like since I have you here. Well, just 1 second. Okay, here we go. So this is the page for CashNet. It's also referred to as an e-marketplace. And so these organizations here have gone through the process of having Student Life get this page set up for them. So we'll look at EBSNA. I think I have some EBSNA folks here in the room. Hey, EBSNA. And so they're selling post-licensure pins, right, for their nursing students. They have the cost and you can decide how much information you want to collect from each of the buyers, right? So you can ask for their name, their email, their year in school, their major, their name, whatever. You would just tell us what information you want to collect, and then it gets added here. Psi Chi Honor Society, they were selling raffle tickets. I don't know if we have Psi Chi here in the building. Feel free to raise your hand, say hi. And so again, you can send people here to be able to purchase whatever it is that they're wanting to purchase. Because really the club should not be accepting money via third-party sites or apps like Venmo, like PayPal, like Cash App. It just doesn't allow for financial transparency, that money is going into your own personal account. And we as a university have no way of knowing what you've received into your account and what you've taken out and what you've, put into your club account and if that's accurate. So regardless of if you're the treasurer, the president or not, you need to not be using those apps. And so when I do hear that you're using those apps, that's when I come in and say, let's get a CashNet page set up for you. And so once that page is set up, then we provide you with the URL that you would then, put out on your marketing or send out via email to your organization. I think that there was a hand. Sandra, was that your hand? No hand? Oh, okay, Kenneth.
Hi, good morning, Heather. This is Treasurer of Epson Concord. Just a quick question for the cash advance and reimbursement. How long is the processing time for that, and how do we receive the money?
That's actually pretty quick. So once you fill out the form, so for cash advance, you're filling out that form. Once we sign it in Student Life, it goes over to the cashier, and then you as a student would go over to the cashier and say, hi, I submitted a form that's been approved for a cash advance for my club. They get your ID, all of that, and then they hand over the cash to you. So that could be same day, it could be next day, but that's usually pretty fast. With club reimbursement, that's really up to you, right? So you should be asking for reimbursement within 2 days of the event ending. So if you all put on, a pinning ceremony yesterday, we don't want to see your reimbursement request a month from now because it's like your event was a month ago. You're supposed to be timely with getting those things into us. And so as soon as you fill out the cash reimbursement form, again, it all goes through Adobe Sign. Once the cashier's office gets it and signs off on it, and then you're notified, about coming to the cashier's desk to get your cash reimbursement. So it's usually pretty fast as long as you have your receipts, and all of your stuff in order, you should be pretty good to go. Something like a check reimbursement. So like if it was over 500, which is pretty rare, but it does happen, that can take up to a couple of weeks for you to get the check issued. I hope that answered your question.
Do you have a preference between cash and credit or debit cards?
When you say that, you mean like as far as you all using?
Yeah, like for when we pay.
Oh, no, that doesn't matter. We just need to see that itemized receipt. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, if you paid for the actual items with cash, credit, or debit, that doesn't matter. Any other questions before we move on? All right. So I can't see the top of my things here. I see a timeline. So program types. So say you're doing an info table, general meetings. Actually, wait a minute. This is getting into your event requests, isn't it, Renee?
Yeah, I think this might be the wrong slide.
Well, it's kind of a mixture, right? Because it
is a timeline.
Yeah, we do have over here about ASI funding requests.
It is beneficial for finances within the timeline. So screenshot. Right. And again, I got a chat sent to me, and the recording will be shared later.
Yes. I am going to jump down here to fundraisers, events with guest speakers. Oftentimes, so one, you as a club are responsible for coming up with your own money. Okay. So there's the misconception that when a new club gets born, that there's money sitting there waiting their account. There's not. And so, the first step that you have to be able to get a little bit of money, like we said earlier, up to $300 is the seed funding request. And that comes directly from ASI, not Student Life. It is important to make the distinction that ASI and Student Life are two completely different entities, two separate departments. We have no say-so or control over how quickly ASI processes your funding requests or transfers the money over to your AS account held by Student Life. So we're kind of waiting like you, right? We don't have a problem with maybe nudging them to say, hey, they turned this in a month ago. Can you give us a status update? But that's about as much as we can do. So we really have to allow them to operate as a department, and Myrna as VP of Finance and her committee, and let them kind of do their thing initially. But as Student Life, we're happy to kind of shoulder tap and just get a status update for you. If you are looking to do a fundraiser, going back to that, a lot of clubs have had success with the restaurant fundraisers, which actually I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, restaurant fundraisers and things like that. Some have even worked at arenas, Coliseum as staff, like event staff, to be able to work and get some money. So I've seen that a few times over the last year or so. And then any major events, requiring things of this nature, we definitely need to get the ball rolling as far as purchasing and getting the ducks aligned, as they say, at least 45 working days before your program, because everything here takes time. There's so many people that, have to approve things, a lot of hands in the pot, and it's not just Student Life that can just move things forward. So funding opportunities. So as you heard off the top, there's ASI club funding requests that you can submit. And that's for travel as well. So if your club does not already have existing funds in the account, and say you're interested in going to a conference, right? Like a club had emailed me last week about wanting to go to a conference. Well, because they don't have enough money in their club account, they're going to have to go through the ASI funding process. But again, if the conference is next month, you likely don't have enough time at this point. So it's really important for you all to plan ahead and be mindful of the calendar, the timeline that you're working with, not only just for your club and maybe your conference, but for everybody else on the back end to help make that happen for you. There's also Cal State East Bay prizes and contests. It used to be once upon a time, and hopefully it still will be, that club members that participated in commencement as volunteers were able to get, I think it was like, Marguerite, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like $50 per student that volunteered from your club up to a certain amount of money, like up to $300, $200, something like that. Yeah, something like that. And so hopefully that will come back. We also have, so like for the leadership conference, so for tomorrow, for clubs that are in person, again, it doesn't have to be everyone from the club, right? But some representation from your club must be present to win. We're going to be having some prize drawings from there. And one of those is $100 deposit into your club account, just because you participated, you were there. So there's little perks here and there, and some other prizes too. So stay tuned. But, as far as actual cash in the account, there's opportunities like that. Again, restaurant programs, a great site for you to check out is groupraise.com. A club leader turned me onto this site last year during the pandemic, and I had never heard of them, and it was great. So I would suggest that you check that out. Membership dues. So some clubs do opt to have membership dues, some do not. Some are required to, like if they're part of a national organization, some of our, the majority of our fraternities and sororities are required to have membership dues. And so that's something that we can discuss as well. And then there's, just other fundraising activities. People do car washes. And I mean, people have really had to get inventive during COVID. And so, there's virtual things going on. People doing, Seize Candy virtual fundraisers. Just think back to when you were in high school, right? In middle school. And there's the popcorn fundraisers and the candy fundraisers. It's really kind of going back old school like that, but for college students. So, and I would talk to other student leaders. And when you're here tomorrow and we have our networking hour from 1 to 2, that is your opportunity to really kind of ask each other those questions and find out what's working from them. How are you guys able to get money? You are your best resources. So do's and don'ts, tips, suggestions, and reminders. So as Ms. Renee and I have said this whole presentation, all purchases need to be approved by your student life advisor. All purchases. You can imagine the things that we've seen in the past, people purchasing whole t-shirt orders and never told our office and then want to be reimbursed $1,000. We don't want that to be you. Okay. So in order to avoid that, talk to us first, please. And before you ask for, purchases or funding requests, you first need to submit your event in basing. There has to be a reason why you're requesting this money, right? A purpose for it is going towards something. And it's generally for an event, a program. And we encourage student organizations to do credit card purchases through Student Life. So you heard Ms. Renee refer to the club credit card. That's what we're talking about. So not your own personal the club credit card that we have here within Student Life. Because again, if you don't have to use your own money, don't hold on to your money. Okay, you guys are college students, keep your money. Do not make purchases on your own until you consult with your Student Life advisor. And consulting really just means, hi, Heather, we're doing an event in 2 weeks. We want to purchase the following items: 100 balloons, a helium tank, streamers, paper plates, and napkins, right? And you give the itemized list. So I could take a look and I say, okay, that looks good. Let me look at your AS account. Let me make sure that you have money in there to spend that. Because there have been times where, a club submits something and I have to tell them, you only have $100 in your account and you're looking to spend $300. You need to go back and cut back some things and figure out what the necessities are, right? But they wouldn't have known that if they would have never had that conversation with me. So again, crucial conversation. Also, it's important to use approved vendors to help just make things easier and to expedite the process. So the university procurement services has a list of approved vendors already in the system. They've already been approved by the university. And maybe, Renee, maybe you can touch on that about the difference of being an approved versus unapproved vendor.
Yeah, so when it comes to licensing, I would just say send it over to Heather and I so that we can send it, to the appropriate department to approve it. And that's the difference. And all vendors who are not approved in the CSU system cannot, there's like a copyright, it's a licensing fee. So, and some vendors are okay with getting on board. It could take it takes a really long process to get them processed in the system because there's a fee. And not all vendors want to pay that fee. So they can become a licensed vendor, but again, it's going to be a process. I did want to touch on also sharing this information after this is over to some of your officers that may not be here. In the past, we have experience, where folks will go ahead and purchase merchandise with their own credit cards and they'll have it shipped to their house, to their residence. And that's a no-no. I think we forgot to add that as a do and don't. But that's very important because we've seen this multiple times happen. The CSU system, we need to receive all merchandise into shipping and receiving first, and then we'll distribute it to you all. So again, do not purchase anything with your own credit card and have it sent to your residence. I can't even do that. I did that in shelter in place and I got in trouble. So yeah, you just have to prove it and it has to be approved. Again, when in doubt, ask. I'm gonna say that all weekend.
Right, because we are part of a university and you are representing a university, anything that has the CSUEB name, logo represented on it, the university communications office has to approve that. So they would request to see like your artwork mock-up, right, for your t-shirt or your tote bag or whatever it is that you're making to approve or not. Alexandria?
Yes, and I might be jumping ahead here, but I was wondering about donations. Our club is looking to do like a partnership fundraiser with another group, and we were hoping to provide them with partial donation from our fundraiser. And I don't know if that's something that we will be able to do.
So you're saying donating something to who?
So we were hoping to fundraise some money for our club through the purchase of like stickers, and half of the donations would go to another organization that we were going to be working with that's in association with our club.
Okay. I know that there is policy around that. I cannot think of it off the top of my head because you're not the first club that has wanted to make donations like to a nonprofit, right? Like Relay for Life or, breast cancer awareness, right? I just cannot think of it off the top of my head. Marguerite, can you?
Not a problem. We just need to make sure that we're clear on where the money is going, and you have to request a check for it from your bank account, from your student account.
Okay, because I believe also we are like a chapter of a larger group, and in order to receive an honors in the larger group, we have to make a donation to them as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I just requested through Renee. Is that what I heard? I'm sorry.
Right. It's like check requests, maybe it's membership dues. I mean, it would become attached with a letter. You wouldn't just request it out of the clear blue anyway. There's some sort of letter or something attached to it that acknowledges that your chapter has to pay this percentage or this amount, and then we would generate payment like from that, right, Renee?
Thank you.
Yes, that is correct. Just send the details over to us so we can look through it. And if there's anything that needs to go over to accounting for approval, we can, just, if it's something that we may not, understand, we can move it forward for approval.
And I believe they do ask for some documentation after the fact, like a receipt from the nonprofit, that they received it, how much they received the check for, right? Just a confirmation that they got those funds.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we are at the end. So if I didn't cover anything that I said I was going to cover and you still had questions, now's the time to ask.
Hi, my club, the Disability Justice Club, one of the things we may do is plan a day trip to Sacramento. I mean, like, how do we purchase that? Like, how do we get the money? What fundraisers will be best for us? Like, and who do we pay it to?
So, unless it's related to like you're actually going to something, your club would not cover the cost of, you just taking a day trip somewhere, just a club field trip. Now, if this is as a way for you to get to a conference or an event as a club, that's different. Renee or Marguerite, I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, and it depends too. Like, for instance, is your organization going to Sacramento and you want to fund the train tickets, right? If you have the money in your account and they want to submit original receipts for their tickets, we'll reimburse that, right? I mean, we would reimburse anything that we would reimburse through, our department or to a regular department. Like Heather and Renee are saying, it has to be related to a purchase. And there is an off-campus event planning form. We don't generally have oversight of off-campus events, but we do want to know where you're going. And then if you're traveling, we'd have a risk management travel meeting with you, make you sign some waivers, make sure you don't hold us accountable for, anything that happen. No, I'm kidding. Make sure that the club is not held accountable for anything that might happen. I didn't realize my video was up. That might happen to anybody. And, if there were any costs associated with your travel, as long as they met our guidelines and you have the money, we would reimburse you. Now, will ASI fund you for a club trip? Probably not. Like a day trip. If you want to raise money so that you can reimburse your club members when you go on the day trip, that's fine. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I do fundraisers, but so the ASI does not provide the funds. Instead, I do fundraisers.
No, so not fundraisers. So they do provide funds of for certain purposes, and so that's why it's important for you to go on the ASI website and read that language under the club funding request to see exactly what they do fund and what they don't fund, because it is pretty clear on there what you can and can't ask for funding for. But no, it's not a fundraising thing through ASI. As I mentioned, you guys can set up a fundraiser as a club, whatever that might be. Like I said, through a restaurant, where you get a certain amount of the proceeds, from one night of sales, or, you're doing, like a popcorn fundraiser or chocolate or, something like that. And that's something that you can talk with me as your advisor about if you want help getting set up. Scarlett, you had a question?
Hi, Heather and everyone. So I am curious about the process of getting an invoice paid directly. Just to explain the whole thing. So we're organizing a virtual race, and that company gave us an invoice. And I'm wondering what the process needs to be in order to get that invoice paid.
Is that
with our funds from our account?
Are you with ETSNA?
Yes.
Okay, so I have that invoice currently right now because it's a virtual what was it? It was like a virtual,
Like a race.
5K.
yeah, but they had to set up a virtual thing. So what happened, it takes a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because this IT now has to process a ICT approval for that. And then, so the rec is already set up for a PO for a check request. I do have that on my desk. It's on my task list, so it is being in the process. IT has been a little backed up this week with several items, so give it a minute. I will reach out to you next week just to follow up on that. I do have invoice on my desk. There's a few other little steps, but all invoices that need to be paid definitely comes through me. And just for all other officers, for invoices that need to be paid, make sure that that information is first in BaseSync. So we know ahead of time that we can approve something like that, to process.
And when she says that that information is in BaseSync, she's meaning like the event that you're doing.
Right. With all details for purchasing, everything, speakers.
Okay, so I'm not missing any forms. I thought maybe I was missing a form.
No, Scarlett.
I'll reach out to you, Scarlett. Thanks for updating us.
Yeah, it's
okay, cool.
We're just waiting on IT. So yeah, like I said, there's a bureaucracy here, right? So there's a lot of people involved and a lot of steps, and a lot of times we're waiting on other people to do their part so we can move forward, unfortunately. So, okay, the other hand, it says 3 people have their hands raised. Who's next?
I think it was Omar and then Alexandra again.
Okay.
So I know that you mentioned ASI and student life are a little bit of separate entities. And I guess I'm just wondering, there was a page a couple of slides back where it was just like, just a tabling event, 7 days, tabling and food, 10 or something like that. And I'm like, so is this when you are going through student life? Like if you have an organization?
That was the timeline. So it kind of referred to reservation items, but also purchasing as well. That was the timeline sheet. So there is a process and a timeline. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then when it says, because I see, what are your purchasing plans for this semester? So what I'd like to do is start a club with, it's called Better Together. And it's a community building one. And one of those things that I am considering is just like, how can we make this space, like the UV dorm, just a bit more inviting and welcoming to students, right? And just a better atmosphere. So potentially purchasing some like decorations from like Dollar Tree, just like as like little murals or whatever it may be, or potentially like LED lights. Is that something that would be like something we could do? Because it's more like things that would stay up as opposed to just like a one-time thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
So again, remember to start in BaseSync. So when you start with BaseSync and you're requesting anything in your event, all those items should be in the BaseSync form. And then so the Heather will review that and then tell you what you can or cannot do moving forward. So everything needs to be itemized inside your BaseSync request form.
And you know what, Renee, our slides here didn't cover or didn't mention, I thought they did, the things that you cannot purchase. So you touched on it earlier. So gift cards cannot be purchased. Sometimes clubs want to purchase gift cards as like a door prize or a giveaway or a grand prize for something.
Right.
You cannot purchase gift cards. You cannot receive reimbursement for gift cards. Also, you can't use gift cards to pay for club expenses. We found that out the hard way. So say you had a Visa gift card and you went to use that Visa gift card to pay for something for your club's event. And later you come back and say, I want reimbursement. They won't reimburse you if you used a gift card. So we found that out the hard way a couple of years ago. So please make note of that. And I will add that to my slides. So you can't purchase gift cards and you also can't purchase alcohol for sure.
Oh, no.
Alexandra?
I just wanted to clarify that to contact you, Heather, and Renee is through email, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Aww.
And you're a baby.
So also, I am available daily from 9 to 3. Destiny, if you're on the Zoom, can you drop in my Zoom office hours for any questions moving forward. You can always join me on the Student Life office hours daily from 9 to 3. And if I'm not there, our great student leaders who are here today representing, shout out to them. They can assist you as well. And if they don't have the answers, we'll get them.
Definitely. Any other questions before we wrap up here? And if you think of anything after the fact, feel free just to shoot us an email. And if by chance your treasurer was not able to be a part of this session this morning, you are personally being tasked with sharing all of this information. As we mentioned in the beginning, these slides will be shared in that Google folder that was in the email that I sent you all yesterday. But outside of that, a lot of information was shared that wasn't on the slide. So we're really counting on you to help pass along that information so they can be successful. Okay.